Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown featuring two agents of chaos, the Warriors of Chaos themselves, led by myself, and the Beastmen, led by the mighty and legendary Leo, on the devastation of Ostermark here, a particularly controversial map that is in current rotations on Quick Battle. That's because it is rather odd. There's kind of three different layers, which does bring some interesting dynamics. Even if it's not the most balanced of maps, it can be fun to play now and again. So for ourselves and the forces of chaos, we were having some fun on stream and picking some pretty odd units. So you may see our build composition is a little strange. It's a small elite build, so let's check it out. On either flank we have some Chaos Marauders. These guys are chevroned up as well, just for a little bit extra damage. And in the centre pocket we have Double Chosen, who also have some chevrons on them. And these are the shielded variety. You may have seen in recent replays. I'm quite a big fan of the great weapons. But in this matchup in particular, we were advised that perhaps the Shielded Chosen could be given a go, then go toe-to-toe with pretty much all of the Beastmen infantry, and those shields will help them out as well up against pesky Centaur throwing axes. Leading this infantry force, we do have Prince Sigvald the Magnificent, the meme meister himself, but he can certainly do some decent damage as well. He's an okay duelist and does come in with some pretty decent abilities in the form of his armour, giving him regeneration. And of course, he does have immune to psychology, so he won't be running away from any big beasties for a while, and he's pretty hard to kill, so he certainly does have some decent potential as well. As for our heavy hitters, we do have the Summoners of Rage, Regiment of Renowned Dragon Ogres, who do have anti-large, a perfect counter to Minotaurs, Chaos Spawn, and all those pesky beasts the mighty Beastmen can indeed bring. Down here we do have two units of Chaos Warhounds with poison as well, to try and hunt down enemy skirmishers, get into the back line and apply that poison. Up in the skies we do have two mighty heroes, an exalted hero, coming in with a pretty expensive kit actually, coming in with Deadly Onslaught, Foe Seeker as well as Mark of Khorne, a very powerful mark there indeed. And we also have a Chaos Sorcerer of Fire. So we did decide to bring Flamestorm, which is a very expensive spell, but you never know, it might be able to pay off here. We also brought Flame and Sword of Rune and Fireball, two more standard picks, as well as the Scroll of Shielding, a really good item, which I highly recommend bringing on all your wizards. We also have some Gorebeast Chariots, or I suppose 3 Gorebeasts, but just the one unit. This is going to be we're going to be trying out today. I've been trying heavy chariots quite a lot recently. I've been really enjoying them, so I thought we'd give these bad boys a go. And they do look pretty menacing. They're kind of like naked Vargol's dragon chariots, which is certainly going to be some scary stuff and have potential to run over normally heavy infantry kind of builds, and Beastmen of course have a lot of foot troops. Now for the forces of Beastmen, I'm a big fan of my opponent's deployment here. Deciding to take the high ground. I was kind of determined to fight on the even playing field on the bottom, but my opponent having no such nonsense. Here's a lovely skirmish corps here of triple Centaurs with throwing axes. They are going to be supported and protected by one unit of Chaos Warhounds with poison. These guys can do some really good long range damage. Now for his main force in the front line, it does look like we have double Goreherds taking this central passage here, leading the way. In fact, triple Goreherds. They can be backed up by some more cheap and cheerful Ungor Spearheads, who do have some chevrons on them though, so they will cost a tiny bit more expensive than usual. In the centre pocket, we do have some Bestigors. These, of course, are the bad to the bones elite of the elite, hence their name, the best of the Gors. Armour piercing, and should be able to do pretty well up against most of Chaos kind of foot troops. In the back lines, we have the Blackhorn Ravengers, Regiment of Renowned Goreherds with perfect vigour, as well as some more Ungor herds as well. We have double Ungor Raiders for a bit of fire support, and they're going to be backed up by some Minotaurs with great weapons. Some of the coolest units in the game, and some awesome attack animations. They do this one where they kind of dive forward into a full barrel roll, and it looks incredibly badass. Now for the leadership core here, we do have a Brave Shaman of Death coming in with Spirit Leech and Fate of Buna there. I believe that's a fair Buna. Let's have a quick little look to double check. It is indeed. And for his lordship, of course, we have Morga the Shadowgave, by far and away the best Beastmen character. Some of the others can do okay work, but personally, I think Morga's just simply the best. He is pretty hard to kill. He is not unbreakable, as I always say he is, because he's so sticky and annoying, I feel like he's unbreakable, but he's not. But he does indeed have regeneration, as well as poison attacks, and can do some nasty summons as well, with those Chaos Spawns. So should be a pretty fun game, and let's get this battle underway. So we are going to be repositioned, obviously, to face the opponent. We are going to be fighting slightly on the low ground here, but that's fine. Fighting in the more kind of confined space will allow our lower numbers, I suppose, to not be overwhelmed quite so heavily. You can see we're outnumbered over 2 to 1. We are trying to sneak in with a key engagement over on the flank straight away. Chaos Warhounds were darting in to get a 2v1, but deciding to pull back to the throwing axe pressure here. I do consider popping in with the Exalted Hero as well as the Chaos Sorcerer, but the Centaurs would simply kite and throw an axe and it wouldn't be a good day. My opponent does leave his little Chaos Warhounds slightly on their own there, so I was tempted to push in, but now they've kind of come back to the Centaurs with throwing axes. Is going to stall my attack a little bit. Gorebeast Chariots getting ready to go into the front lines where they should be able to hammer home the enemy pretty effectively. And here they go, charging in, running over those pesky gore herds. And, you know, not getting any kills so far, but doing some pretty good HP damage straight out the gate. They're certainly going to have the mass as well to pull away. Only the Minotaurs really in the ground troops should be able to stop them. Summoners of Rage as well pop in on top of some gore herds just to try and get some free damage while my opponent is trying to micro after my chariots. Maybe going to try and drop a flame storm down on the best scores, but completely miss, unfortunately. Although it is going to whirl around here, and it is kind of dangerously near all these Ungor Raiders. Looks like it may actually go into this unit and perhaps get some decent damage in the end. A Fate of Buna or a Spirit Leech has gone down. Looks like a Fate of Buna on the Chosen doing some good work. Minotaurs have slightly overextended here and surrounded, but a lovely Chaos Spawn summoned by my opponent as he drags back his Minotaurs. Really nice save of that situation there by Leo. Flamestorm is going to be chewing through some Ungor Raiders, but they are just Ungor Raiders at the end of the day. Over on the left-hand flank, we did manage to catch my opponent's hounds slipping slightly, coming in with the Gorebeast Chariots as well to try and overwhelm the Centaurs, and this is a bit of a sacrifice on my behalf. Gorebeast Chariots are going to be trying to tie down the Centaurs, taking the damage so that my Chosen may stand and fight, because throwing axes to the back certainly isn't going to be too fun. As you can see, we are dropping in with the Chaos Sorcerer, and that's one of the bonuses of being on a Manticore. You can dip and dive in and out of combats and be relatively tanky and do a decent amount of damage overall as well. So in the main battle line, Summoners of Rage do have a Scroll of Shielding on them, trying to keep them alive and active, but Chaos Spawn pressure as well as Bestigor is really starting to pay dividends and do some decent damage to the Summoners. Standard Die has been popped, however, as they do wheel away now and try and fall back for the most part in an effort not only to save some Chaos Marauders but also save their own skin, as really nice Ungor pressure is putting pretty good damage onto them overall. We do have a bit of a duel as the Exalted Hero gets Spirit Leech, but he's not going to mind too much if he can get to grips with this Brave Shaman of Death, doing some pretty decent damage all round. Should be a duel you'd expect the Exalted Hero to win overall. Do have the Chain Lightning coming down as well by the Summoners of Rage. Did some okay damage. You know, it's a free item, so might as well use it, I suppose. Doing some pretty good work onto those Ungor Raiders. It looks like it may even wheel through some of the retreating ones and hit some more Ungors as well. My opponent doing a fantastic job in this middle ground, just slowly grinding through the forces. You can see the Summoners of Rage have had huge pressure put upon them. Minotaurs with great weapons are going down to them, but the second Chaos Spawn summon, I would assume at this point, yeah, we can see the dead ones just there, and now we're going to put pressure on them as well, probably looking to overwhelm them. Centaurs with thrown axes are now free. Looks like one unit may be going down. The other two are now getting lovely thrown axes into the rear of the Chosen, so their shields aren't going to help them at all. Still, 120 armor is pretty nice. A big old fat Flamestorm does come down, and it skims a few of the best scores before kind of wheeling away into a no man's land there. Summoners of Rage once again do pull back. And it looks like that Brave Shaman of Death may indeed rally and perhaps manage to rally these Minotaurs, but it looks like the Exalted Hero is coming over to say hello here. But another Spirit Leech has been popped, getting that good damage by the Brave Shaman, trying to get him to pay for himself before he does meet his fate here. Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Fire is trying to shut down the range contingent of my opponent's build, but we're looking at a little fill on the ground. Chosen desperately trying to hold the line, but good rear attacks coming in by the Centaurs with thrown axes. And it looks like the Gorebeasts are trying to be too many places in one go. Only up to 22 kills so far, but they've all been on the Centaurs, or for the most part, so that's not too bad all round. But it looks like our lack of numbers is really showing here. We've managed to fend off that pesky Shaman, but we are kind of a little bit empty. If we have a little look up the top, we have simply 72 troops to face down at 630. The odds are stacked against the elite of the Chaos here. Exalted Hero is going to go for a snipe on Morgar the Shadowgave. Unfortunately, as I said earlier on, Morgar is incredibly sticky, so trying to snipe him tends to be a bit of a mistake, but we had an opening, so I thought we'd at least do some damage. You can see the Ungor Raiders have been terrified off in the distance. But the most important thing that I know you're all here for is, of course, Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. Up to 35 kills. Isn't doing too bad here. He's slicing and hacking away. cutting a few of those Ungors down a little peg or two, and the Chosen are fighting quite happily alongside him at this point, up to 85 kills. Gorebeast Chariots are now doing what they really want to be doing, is pushing through Ungor herds, breaking units, and darting between engagements, hopping onto Ungor raiders now, using their mass to kind of drag and pull away. And there's only really the Centaurs left who have the mass to stop them, but decent ammo conservation from my opponent here is kind of, got decent amount of volleys left on both units. I should be able to do some pretty decent damage if I can't shut them down. We don't have too many mobile troops left. The Gorebeast Chariots will be trying to complete this task, of course. Running over some Gore herds here. Up to 79 kills is pretty good stuff indeed. They're going to be doing a downhill charge now into the flank of these Centaurs as well. Desperately trying to force them off, but they are going to get surrounded by Gore herds as well. And Chariots don't like being surrounded, funnily enough. They much prefer kind of consistently moving and bouncing between engagements. But the mass of the Centaurs is pinning them in, so the Chaos Sorcerer Lord has had to fly down here to aid the Gorebeast Chariot. Chosen still fighting strong, just 15 models, but up to a whopping 135 kills. It looks like the Gorebeast may be joining in the fun as well, but they're getting very danger low now as another volley of thrown axes does indeed come in. And it looks like the Chariots are pretty much done for at this point, down to just 169 health, and the Chosen down to 15. Things are looking very bare bones, but the balance of power is in our favour at the moment, and that's probably due to the damage that the mighty Morga is currently taking, trying to go toe-to-toe with the Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. They don't call him the Magnificent for nothing, and he's got a Flaming Sword of Ruin popped on him to try and give him that fire damage, which will really help against Morga, of course, who does suffer from a weakness to fire. And the Chaos Sorcerer Lord as well has popped in with that Flaming Sword, doing some massive damage as Morga does skip away, desperately trying to escape the Sorcerer. Prince Sigvald is now tied down by the Blackhorn Ravengers as well as some Ungors, but he'll be quite happy to deal with them for the majority of the battle. And it looks like the thrown axes are pretty much spent now, so it is going to be a kind of last slog fest, although the Chosen are running for the hills, so it looks like it's the three characters here up against the hordes of the Beastmen, as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Fire desperately tries to get back up into the skies and does indeed succeed. And the Exalted Hero as well looks like should be able to bound forward and float up into the sky. There is some rallying besticles in the distance, and 16 models can still pack a punch, so they can certainly come back. And it looks like Sigvald is managing to drive off the Ungors, although the last desperate Chosen are kind of stuck in here, unable to escape. Centaurs, really nice play by my opponent here, is going to be cycle charging where possible, trying to get as much damage with taking the least amount as well. And now he's going to be using their High Mass to pin in the Exalted Hero, as well as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Fire, which is really sketchy for me here. As if all these troops can surround these single entities, you can do some really big damage. The Exalted Hero, even with all his buffs popped, as well as Stand or Die, is taking an absolute hammering. Could be partly down to Morga the Shadowgate as well, who is a pretty decent duelist, especially with that poison. It looks like the Exalted Hero has broken here, but despite this, balance power is very heavily in our favour, as Morga does indeed start to waver to the combined pressure of the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, as well as the Prince. Morga down to 12 leadership though, so he's not too low just yet. Looks like the Shaman is trying to get back up into the skies, bounding away, but the Centaurs hot on the heels here of the Manticore. You can see me kind of trying to pop either way just to get him to try and fly up over this ridge, but he's not having it, and he's been dragged down here. The Centaurs hot on the heels of this Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and it looks like they've managed to rout the beast, but if they can get back up into the sky, perhaps it can indeed rally. And that is leaving Prince Sigvald all alone here, and all of a sudden that balanced power is dead even once more. And remember guys, the Prince as well as Morga do of course have regeneration, so this could yet be a bit of a slogfest. In the distance, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord simply cannot escape, getting pinned in up against this mountainside, and the mass of the Centaurs, lovely play by my opponent, really kind of trying to loop up and around in front of him, so he can't escape. He is indeed shattered, and that is going to leave 1 versus 283, or 82 now, troops. But that one is Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. I'm sure if you asked him in person, he would say he is more than up for the challenge of slaying such beasts. Without the fire damage, it is going to be really tough to take down Morga, and the more Morga does indeed fight, the more he can poison the Prince and slowly try and drag him down. And he is now at his healing cap, but nearly up to 100 kills. And Morga, every time he does come in to apply poison, does risk kind of being slain here. 1,000 health is only a few well-placed slices from the Prince from slaying him. You can see one hit there brings him down to 600 health. And it looks like a few of the Beastmen forces are starting to give up hope here, shattering and running from the field. But there is so many Beastmen surrounded the Prince at this point. And Morga as well, of course, is regenerating this entire time. But they are starting to waver a little bit. The Ungors, the lesser of the Gors, are starting to doubt their leader here, as the Prince does slay more and more beasts the longer he indeed does fight. It's kind of funny seeing how small the Ungors are compared to the other Beastmen, as well as the Prince here. He's having a whale of a time. He is wavering slightly, but, 117 kills, still a happy chappy for now. He's going to pop Foe Seeker as well to try and improve his vigour, just try and keep him fighting as long as possible. Deadly Onslaught is also popped. Was trying to save it for when Morga came in, but my opponent really wisely is keeping him out of the engagement for now and pulling out the Centaurs so they can wrap round and charge in. Looks like on the periphery he's also resting some of his units. No point getting these guys killed or committed to the fight just yet. Let them heal up a little bit before coming in, and cycling in and out units as well. It's kind of an old school Roman tactic actually. Probably done before them as well, but I just know it's something they did indeed do, where you pull out troops, let them rest, send in another load of troops, let them fight, let them rest, pull them out, let them rest, and then send in more troops, and all that good stuff. Prince unfortunately does break here, and it looks like it is going to be a valiant defeat for the forces of Chaos. The Beastmen claiming victory. A really fun game that we did indeed have on stream. I think a couple of weeks ago, I've been meaning to cast it for ages, but replays keep appearing. I'm like, oh, I want to cast this, oh, I want to cast this. But very well played to Leo, and a well-deserved victory. Really fun build all round, and masterful Centaur play. I think at the end of the day, the Centaurs were really well won it. The Chosen, one unit got hit pretty hard by magic, but the other unit was just absolutely ripping apart kind of the central core of the Beastmen build once the Spawn and Minotaurs had been dealt with. So the Centaurs coming in, getting that consistent throwing axes into the back of the Chosen, I think was a real turning point and a good conservation of the Centaurs throughout, despite them getting compromised early on a couple of times by the Gorebeast Chariots. So very well played to load there, super fun build. As for my build, we were trying a little few things out with the Flamestorm and of course the Prince and the Chariots, and I've got to say, I was pretty impressed with the Gorebeast Chariots. They wasted a lot of the game kind of shutting down the throne axes, but as I said during the game, it was kind of a necessary evil. I had to try and keep them away from the Chosen. We didn't have the numbers to really kind of take the damage from skirmish play like that. So he did a decent job, and then still managed to float back to the main battle line and get 94 kills. So certainly did, pretty decent work all round. At the same time, the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, those Flamestorms were pretty fun. I think a Burning Head, which you can aim obviously a lot easier, would have been better and more viable. But, it's always good to see the Flamestorm in action, and 162 kills. I'm a big fan of the Manticore heroes. The added mobility, managing to jump down and kind of snipe out targets is really key. Of course, you saw us hunt down that Bray Shaman pretty effectively. However, at the same time, you have to be aware your Manticores can get stuck. They don't have the biggest mass. It's not a dragon or a gigantic beast. It's kind of medium size. So units like Centaurs can be used to pin them in rather effectively. And of course the Prince, always magnificent, always Sigvald, and 136 kills. He certainly did some decent work. Anyway guys, hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, feel free to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content, and feel free to comment. I do view all my comments and do get back to you on them. It does take me a little while. I tend to do them in kind of batches once or twice a week. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.